In 2002, Super Troopers came out, and it was a small movie that went a long way, as it deals with the day-to-day meanderings of a bunch of highway patrol troopers, who relieve their boredom by pranking and messing with people who they stop on the highway. However, when their jobs are on the line, they have to go against the local police department, where they discover some sinister corruption at play. In this fun, energetic, couldn't-care-less comedy that introduced the world to the term mustache ride. But does it still hold up? Yeah, it does. Bit of a silly question really, wasn't it?
Meow.
So it's time to let the shenanigans begin as we explore Super Troopers. It's full of fun, and laughter, and powdered sugar, and littering, and candy bar. So, 10 things, let's check it out.
It's powdered sugar.
The lice hate the sugar. Listen, Rod.
It's delicious.
Good.
Number 10, the comedy brains behind Super Troopers. Super Troopers was written by a comedy group called Broken Lizard. The group consists of members Jay Chandrasekhar, Kevin Heffernan, Steve Lemmy, Paul Sota, and Eric Stolhansky, all of whom would go on to star in Super Troopers, with Jay Chandrasekhar also directing too. The group formed in Colgate University in 1989, where they would perform live comedy shows. Upon graduating, the comedy troupe would also go on to perform at clubs in New York. As time went on, Broken Lizard shifted its attention from live shows to film, where they made a 30-minute movie called The Tinfoil Monkey Agenda, which made it to the Fort Lauderdale Film Festival. After having a brush of success with their short movie, the band of funny friends decided it was time to make an actual feature-length movie. Number 9, the inspiration behind Super Troopers. So it's here that Broken Lizard wrote the script for Super Troopers. Highway cops who relieve their boredom by engaging in pranks and other goofball behaviour, who also find themselves up against a corrupt local police department. The idea of Super Troopers came from the real-life experiences from the members of Broken Lizard, of when they were young and would go on road trips to Canada, and would frequently get pulled over by cops while being high as balls, where they theorised an idea that, imagine if the cops knew that they were high and for fun decided to mess with them, and just how much that actually could have messed with their heads.
I'm freaking out, man.
And thus the idea of Super Troopers was born. According to FilmSchoolRejects.com, the iconic scene at the start, where that kid eats a bag of weed and shrooms, really happened, where while the Broken Lizard's car was being searched by cops at the border, one of the members actually did eat a bag of drugs.
You want to know why I pulled you over? Littering.
Candy bars.
Number 8, potential ideas. So Broken Lizard were shopping their script around, trying to get studios interested in the movie, so they could get finances to make it. But that was easier said than done. Going back to FilmSchoolRejects.com, Fox were interested, but thought that it should be a TV show, not a movie. So a pilot episode was written, but nothing came of it. According to Mental Floss, movie-producing monster Harvey Weinstein and his Miramax studio then came on board to produce the movie. But Weinstein just couldn't figure out if the movie was a comedy or not. Apparently, he didn't find it funny. But the article goes on to explain that Weinstein told the Broken Lizard team to meet him at a bar at Sundance, and by them being seen in his presence will give their project traction. And, well, it worked. After fellow Hollywood attendees saw the members of Broken Lizard at a bar with Weinstein, that suddenly got everyone interested in the movie. Because back then, when people saw Weinstein in public, they didn't immediately call the police, but rather, apparently, hanging out with him gave you clout. Oh, jeez. The production then got picked up by Universal Pictures, who were willing to put in a $5.5 million budget, but once again, the plan didn't fall through. Supposedly in those days of trying to pitch the movie, lots of studios wanted to get involved with the movie creatively and add their own writers and directors and so on, and basically have complete creative control. But Broken Lizard wanted to be in complete control over their movie.
These boys get that syrup in them, they get a little antsy in their pantsy.
No wonder Weinstein didn't find the script funny. It was about law enforcement. I'd imagine that he probably wanted to stay as far away from law enforcement as possible. Number 7. Super Troopers could have been set in the 70s. So the Broken Lizard team then pitched Super Troopers to the Farrelly brothers, who were leading pioneers of outrageous comedies in the 90s and 2000s. And so they were interested, and their collaborators Brad Thomas and Pat Healy then came on board to make rewrites. And they decided to base Super Troopers in the 70s, simply because they loved comedy movies of that era, with the likes of Animal House and Smokey and the Bandit. Yep, if it was set in the 70s, I'm sure there would have been a lot more mustache rides.
Who wants a mustache ride?
However, the Farrelly brothers also couldn't come up with funds for the movie either. So, this was not to be. Supposedly, Broken Lizard were feeling pretty deflated at this point, with the movie going nowhere and the group on the verge of breaking up. To put it into perspective, up to 20 drafts of Super Troopers had been written, and yet every time a studio, producer, or other filmmakers got involved, it just went nowhere. Number 6. Parents saved the day. One day, Jay Chandrasekhar got a phone call from an old friend who asked him if he would read a script that her father had been working on, to which he agreed. And in return, Chandrasekhar handed his Super Troopers script for her and her father to also read. And this mysterious father, as it happens, actually loved the script and saw potential. And what really helped is that he was a former investment banker at Wall Street, so he had finances to invest in the movie. Finally, someone who believed in Super Troopers without turning it into a TV show or a 1970s retro movie, or have to hang out at a bar with Harvey Weinstein in order to get it made. Just a retired investment banker who honestly just wanted the movie to be made because he really liked it. So Super Troopers got a budget of somewhere from $1.5 million to $3 million. So it was a low budget. In addition to that, Kevin Heffernan's mother came up with the title, where when her son told her he was making a movie about highway patrol officers, she replied with, "Oh, you're making a movie about Super Troopers." And, well, the name just stuck from there. Number 5. Casting possibilities. Considering Super Troopers was made on the cheap, they weren't exactly going to be able to cast any big names in the movie, with most of the cast consisting of Broken Lizard themselves. Going back to Mental Floss, when they pitched the movie to studios, the studios would often say that they wanted Ben Affleck to star in the movie, who was a big-time actor at the time. But just because Affleck is a big actor at the time doesn't necessarily mean he should star in Super Troopers. Wikipedia also adds that Broken Lizard really wanted comedy legend Bill Murray to star in the movie to play Captain John O'Hagan, and they reached out to Murray's agent and offered him $100,000 to star in the movie. But, as I've said so many times before in this video, nothing came of it. Scottish actor Brian Cox, on the other hand, really wanted to star in the movie. Up at that point, he was considered a serious Shakespearean actor who only starred in serious productions, and he wanted to expand on his funny bone and try out in comedy. And so thankfully he was cast, and well, it's for the best as he actually is really funny in the movie.
I swear to God, I'll pistol whip the next guy that says shenanigans. I'm naked!
After making my episode on What About Bob, it's probably just as well they didn't hire Bill Murray. He probably would have gotten drunk and beaten everyone up. Okay, that's just a joke. I actually do love Bill Murray. And while we're talking about the cast, just throwing it out there that TV Wonder Woman, Linda Carter, has a cameo as Governor Jessman. Random, but sure, why not? Adding Linda Carter to anything can only make it better. Number 4. Filming shenanigans. Super Troopers was filmed around Rockefeller State Park Reserve in Pleasantville, New York. The bulletproof cup scene was actually filmed outside a real prison, and the inmates of the prison were close by watching the filming from the prison grounds, and were screaming out abuse at the cast and crew, particularly Steve Lemmy, probably because of his attire. One of the most iconic scenes is where we see the officers pouring all that maple syrup down their guts. Originally, iced tea was used to film that scene, but it was felt that it looked too fake and didn't have, quote, that glug 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 thick look. So they actually chucked down actual maple syrup for realsies. Ugh. Even the thought of that gives me diabetes.
I am all that is man every time.
While filming one particular scene, the highway needed to be clear of all traffic, but all efforts to prevent this failed. So Kevin Heffernan, in his road patrol uniform, actually impersonated a police officer in order to stop the traffic. Highly illegal, but hey, I guess it got the job done. The bar of soap that was used in the soap prank was actually made out of white chocolate, but it needed to be sugar-free, as Brian Cox, who bites into the supposed soap bar, is actually diabetic. And one of the movie's most outrageous moments sees the father character call an older couple in a car chicken fuckers. Well, that was actually Kevin Heffernan's real-life parents. Supposedly, they knew that he was going to give them an insult of some kind, but wasn't expecting that. Speaking of father, that moustache? Not real. Yep, it was a fake. But the antsies in the pantsies were real. Number 3, deleted material. So we all know the classic ending of SuperTroopers, where we think our main characters are now delivery men bringing in a keg of beer to the stoners from the start of the movie, where lo and behold, they're now cops. Well, there was actually an original ending that was filmed, but ultimately not used, where the former trooper officers are now working in a meat packing factory, where they tell their boss at the factory that they should not ship out bad meat to the public, but the boss tells them to do it anyway, where they rip off their meat factory uniforms to reveal that they're now cops, similar to the reveal in the ending that we got, and chase the boss around the factory. I've read about this ending from several sources, but couldn't find any footage or still images. Speaking of alternative material, I'm only just seeing for the very first time the US movie poster. I've seriously never seen this before. In my part of the world, we got this poster, with the troopers bunched together behind the legs of a sexy female officer, giving it a sort of Porky's vibe. I guess learning about this poster isn't really something you guys didn't know. This is actually something Minty didn't know, but everyone else did. This poster also contains the Broken Lizard logo, which featured on some of their other posters. So I guess Broken Lizard was going to be kind of like a National Lampoon's kind of movie brand, and for some reason the officers are upside down. Or maybe they're just upside down to me because I'm in Australia. I honestly feel like my world has been rocked, as I'm used to seeing the stacked behind the female legs poster. And in case you're interested, in Germany the movie was called SuperTroopers, the Super Cops, and in France it was called Super Patrol. Number 2, a moustache ride all the way to the bank. SuperTroopers was screened at the Sundance Film Festival in January 2001, where Fox Searchlight Pictures, which is a division of 20th Century Fox, bought the distribution rights for the movie, and it was given a widespread release 13 months later in February 2002. And it would go on to make just over $23 million on its budget that sat somewhere between $1 to $3 million. So it was financially successful. However, home media seemed to be where it really thrived, as it would go on to make another $60 million when released on VHS and DVD, and it's gone on to be a cult movie with an adoring fan base who frequently reference the movie and quote its funny lines. It got pretty mixed reviews though, with the New York Times calling it bad and tasteless, and Rotten Tomatoes describes SuperTroopers as more of a miss than a hit, and only something you'll like if you want something silly. Personally, I think this is another case of a movie that the older audience didn't understand, but the young people the movie was aimed at totally got it and loved it. So the movie was definitely talking to the youth of the time. I can remember when SuperTroopers came out, it was actually really popular here in Australia, and I'm not surprised it was such a huge hit on home video, because at that time when it came out, I was a late teen, aka the target audience, and this was the type of movie that would make me and my mates gather together where we would rent it from a video store, and we would all just watch it and laugh in hysterics, and yeah, SuperTroopers was one that we rented several times. After the success of Super Troopers, the Bad Lizard team would go on to make more comedy movies, including Club Dread, Beer Fest, The Slammin' Salmon, a sitcom called Tacoma FD, and more recently a movie called Quasi, which I've never heard of, but apparently it came out in 2023. Hey, I guess everyone was too busy with Barbenheimer at the time. Number 1. The sequel was a long time coming. So yeah, after the release of Super Troopers, the sitcom Reno 911 came out, and apparently this was born out of the original idea to make a Super Troopers TV show. Remember how in the movie's early production, Fox suggested they make a TV series instead? And in addition to that, supposedly the script for the Super Troopers pilot was actually set in Reno. So it could probably be argued that Reno 911 was an extension of the original idea to make Super Troopers a TV show. However, all that aside, in 2006, the gears really started turning for a Super Troopers 2, and originally it was going to be a prequel set in the 70s called Super Troopers 76, yet again based on another abandoned idea while making the first movie. However, in 2009 it was decided to make the next Super Troopers movie a sequel. However, come 2015, Broken Lizard had to gain production fundings for the movie themselves, and even use the services of Indiegogo crowdfunding, where they thankfully got the required $2 million, which actually all up gave Super Troopers 2 a budget of $13 million, far exceeding the first movie's budget. So Super Troopers 2 was released in 2018, 17 years after the Sundance release of the first movie, and all up it made $32 million. Not bad, but not brilliant. To be honest, it had a really quiet release here in Australia. I mean, it was barely advertised and no one was talking about it. In fact, I didn't even know about its release. I think I only found out about it a few years later when I saw it on a streaming service. So it's strange that it completely slipped by here in Australia, despite the first movie being such a big hit in this part of the world. In fact, I even forgot there was a sequel till making this episode. So why weren't there heaps of people jumping up and down with joy for Super Troopers 2? Well, it could be because maybe too much time had passed and there just wasn't interest anymore, or because it came out at a time where a lot of sequels to classic comedies were also coming out at that time and were notorious for not being able to live up to their originals and generally being disliked by fans. Super Troopers 2 was actually performing better than expected in the box office when it was first released. However, in its second week, it had a 76% drop, which is never a good sign. It didn't get the best reviews, with Variety calling it aggressively lame and slobby. But interestingly, this time round, the New York Times did like the movie and found it very funny indeed. Wow, what a turnaround. I've spoken to a few people who've watched Super Troopers 2, and in most of the responses, there seems to be a sort of malaise. This attitude of, it's okay, but just not as good as the original, and some have even added disappointment. But to be fair, some have also said they actually really like it, and found it to be underrated. There supposedly is a third one in the works called Super Troopers 3 Winter Soldiers, but we'll just have to wait and see about that. In the meantime, we'll always have the original. That one time in 2002, when a crazy, outrageous comedy came out and really spoke to the youth of its time. A naughty comedy that the adults didn't get, but us kids at that time totally got it. And loved it. Now that was my look into Super Troopers, and it's an absolute comedy classic. An always satisfying go-to movie if you ever need a good laugh. Now, I would rank it as one of the best outrageous comedies. All the way back then, right over here to Meow. Anyway, I'm Minty, and I'm heading off, Meow. See ya! Meow.
I'm naked!